Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Pickles and Vodka Podcast. I'm your host, Christina. I don't think I ever introduced myself before. You're just supposed to know everything about me because you stalk me. Duh. But yeah, my name's Christina. I just finished watching a movie on Netflix. I am fresh off a Netflix binge as we speak. So normally when I watch Netflix, it's because I'm bored or I want something in the background. I've been rewatching Shameless for the millionth time, even though it's one of those shows that starts off really good and gets progressively worse. But it's comforting to me because I've seen it and it reminds me of my family a little bit because I grew up in Chicago and I'm the oldest of 7 kids. And, my family's crazy and I don't know. I can relate to it a little bit. Anyway, tonight I did not watch Shameless. I actually sat down and watched a full-ass movie, which is rare for me. Okay, so first of all, before I talk about the movie, the episode that you're about to listen to is the lost episode. It's a big deal. I don't know if you remember, a few weeks ago, I talked about how I had recorded an episode with my friend Rachel and emailed myself the wrong file, and the episode had been recorded on my ex's computer, which got packed up to another state, and so I didn't have the episode forever, but he got his place set up and he sent it to me. And this is that episode. So this episode you're about to listen to is a few weeks old. And you can definitely tell, the audio setup is not the greatest. There's a dog, there's traffic, there's some minor audio issues. I don't know. That's just because I'm a perfectionist. But it's definitely a treat. My friend Rachel is an amazing person. We had reconnected that day after years of knowing each other from summer camp, but we didn't really talk. She works in a psych ward, and she also has been in a psych ward as a patient. So you're about to hear our conversation. It's really good. We answer some questions from listeners. So if you emailed me weeks ago, probably months ago at this point, with a question and you never heard back, odds are you're going to hear the answer today. I'm so sorry. I am getting over a cold, and I haven't had health insurance because I'll get into this later. It's something that happened with my job. It's a mess, but I haven't had a health insurance, and so I haven't been able to go to the doctor, so I've just been kind of riding it out, and it's been pretty good the last few days, but every now and then it flares up, of course, when I'm recording a podcast. But anyway, the Netflix movie that I just finished watching is called Anesthesia. I don't know how you say it, but it's really good. It's one of those movies with ensemble casts, a bunch of big name actors. Kristen Stewart's in it. She plays a woman who is really jaded with life, and she self-harms. So trigger warning, if self-harm triggers you, you might not want to watch it. There's a scene. It doesn't really show anything graphic, but there's definitely self-harm depicted. Anyway, it's an ensemble movie. I don't know if you guys ever saw Love Actually, that cheesy British Christmas movie where you get introduced to all these different characters, and then throughout the course of the movie, it's revealed how their lives are intersected. And this is kind of like that movie, but the mental health version that's depressing as shit, but also really good. It is a really depressing movie. It's basically, you get to know all these different characters and how they're related to each other, and they're each dealing with their own shit. It deals with depression, alcoholism, drug addiction, teenage drama, old person drama. I don't know. It's just really, really good. And I'm kind of shook. Now that I'm finished watching it, I feel kind of bereft. Shit, what am I supposed to do now after watching that? You should go on Netflix and watch it if you're like me and you just spend 10 minutes going through your options and end up picking something you've seen before. You should definitely watch it. Anesthesia is the name of it. I don't know why I have so much trouble with that word. With that said, I'm just gonna go ahead and jump right into the lost episode with Rachel. I hope you guys enjoy. Starting this week, I don't have any more pre-recorded episodes to release. The last few weeks I've been moving into Seattle, getting settled, and so I've kind of been publishing episodes that are either from the road or that I had recorded like a week prior, but I am gonna need some guests starting this week. So if you want to be on the podcast, now is your time to shine. If you have something mental health related you want to talk about, hit me up. You know where to find me at this point, I hope. Pickles and Vodka podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Gmail, all that stuff. I'll also be hitting up some people. So yeah, here's Rachel, and I hope you guys are having a great Monday so far. Okay, so I'm here with my guest.
Hey.
The dog is in the room again. We tried to get her out, but she insists on staying, and so she keeps coming over and licking us randomly, so there might be interruptions in that regard. But do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and your history with mental health?
Yeah, so I'm Rachel. I currently work at an adolescent inpatient psychiatry unit at a local hospital. I have been there since August. Yeah, I really, really enjoy the job. As far as my history, I've held quite a number of diagnoses throughout the years. I was on the other side of the glass back in 2010 for my own struggles. At one point it was anorexia, self-injury, depression has been the prevailing issue. I have been medicated. I think I counted the other day. I think I've been on a total of 15 medications.
Damn.
At different times. Right now I've kind of stabilized on my 4. Take them twice a day, every day, and I have no regrets. I freaking love them. And I would be totally fine to take them for the rest of my life if I continue to feel this way.
You're like a good hype man for meds. Like, I freaking love them.
It's like the most recent med I got started on. I started it about 3 years ago, and I had been in a very depressive state. It was go to school, come back home, get in bed, and stay there until it was dinner time kind of thing. I started on Latuda. Shout out to my main med, Latuda. And smallest, tiniest dose, I started taking it, and it was like the clouds parted. And all of a sudden,
for depression, right?
It is an atypical antipsychotic that is also approved for bipolar depression. Neither of those I have, but it works like a charm.
Okay. What are the other meds you're on, and what are they for?
So the longest one I've been on is Cymbalta. It's a SNRI. It is approved for depression, but also fibromyalgia, chronic pain, that kind of thing. But I take that for depression. I've taken that for 8 years at this point. I also take trazodone. It's an atypical antidepressant, but I'm using it for sleep, and it is beautiful. I also take Lamictal. I've taken that a little bit. I've taken that since 2012, and it's actually an anti-seizure med, but I take it for mood stabilization. Technically, I have a diagnosis of bipolar, but I've never been manic once in my life. I think it's just for insurance billing purposes, and I don't really care.
All right. I feel like we should say something about how we met.
Yeah.
When was it?
It was like 2009 summer at a military retreat center. We were both working as slaves for free with the promise of lots of fun, which it was.
It was a lot of fun. Those are some of the best years of my life.
Yeah, and some good relationships are formed, obviously, if we still talk.
Yeah, but we were both going through a lot at the time, and this was just like a little vacation mentally. I don't know. I know we were both dealing with a lot of the same types of issues, and we met and just immediately connected.
Yeah, and then we turned pen pals.
Yeah, when I was hospitalized, she sent me this amazing notebook full of paintings and poetry and songs and whatnot. We actually just pulled it out and looked at it. It was a trip down memory lane.
Yeah, and when Christina was in the hospital, then she sent me this pastel paper. I still have that filed away.
Good times. We've both gone through a lot over the years. Kind of lost touch for a while, but we live in the same state now. And I don't know, I think you have a lot to say about a lot of important stuff. So I'm really excited you're on the podcast.
Yeah.
So tell me about your experience in school. while going through all this stuff?
Yeah, so I did the standard move away from home, go to college, lived in a dorm 1 year, and then the other 3.5 years I lived in a house with other girls. So freshman year, like high school, I had my main depressive episode, was hospitalized after a suicide attempt. Kind of got better, was really, really numb for a long time, but like towards the end of high school, I turned a corner and I was doing pretty good. College, I was a little bit homesick and I had a couple like depressive episodes, a couple episodes of self-harm, and it was also back when I was in 7th grade, I came up with this mantra: when I go away to college, I'm going to have an eating disorder, get skinny, be beautiful, and then I will be happy. And so it was a lot of fighting against that or lack of fighting. And so I had like a couple attempts at starting up. But then one day, I don't really know what transpired this, but I kind of realized, I was like, I absolutely do not want to be a mom who has kids and is struggling with an eating disorder still. I don't want kids to be like, why is mommy not eating? Why is mommy crying when she steps on the scale? And I was like, no, this needs to change. This needs to change now.
That's interesting. You never told me that.
Oh, yeah. And so it was at that point I self-decided, like my college, the health center had a dietitian. The other issue that I had was I was actually overweight. At the time, I had been on lithium for quite some time, and that causes you to have cravings, and I just wasn't trying to fight them. So I was overweight at that point and did need to lose weight. So that was also a part of it. So I went to the dietitian. We came up with a plan for how I was going to change my eating. I was also taking a gym class that was like working on weight training and trying to figure, so that was just really productive.
That's great that you had those resources.
Yeah, no, it was. And with that, I kind of kicked it. I'm not really sure what all transpired, but I kicked it. And then I went to summer camp for that summer, and I saw a lot of other girls my age. They walked around in their swimsuits, and I was like, they are strong and they are beautiful. And you know what? That's okay.
Hell yeah. Do you still struggle with the eating disordered thoughts?
No, not at all.
That's amazing, though, that you completely cut it out. Like, I don't know a lot of people who can say that.
Yeah, I think a combination, like I was doing pretty well. I had the meds in my system to help like even things out.
And I do think every person needs a complete toolbox to deal with their stuff. Like a lot of people think there's like one answer to everything and they're constantly looking for the one answer, but I think it's like a combination of tools and coping methods and meds and therapy, whatever. And everyone's so different. Sometimes it takes an entire lifetime to find what works for you. I think it's so cool that you finally did after all these years.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I tell my kids at work is like, you like having coping skills, like you need to have all the tools, and we do all these group therapies to come up with new tools, and I'm like, and that's what you do. You make a list of them. You make a list of 1,000 coping skills and you go right down the list. Every single one. Get to 99. And maybe number 99 is the one that works today. And that's how it has to happen.
So tell me more. So when did you graduate from school?
December 2016.
Okay, so 2 years ago, exactly, pretty much. So how did you start at this job?
So I was working at a pediatrician's office, and I absolutely loved it. I also knew I wanted to go back to school, and so I was in the process of that. And then I had my annual raise meeting, and they gave me a really pathetic raise, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm worth more than this. Had like a target of what I wanted to make. And I went looking around, and I knew kind of what kinds of nursing jobs, like what I would be up against. And I saw adolescent psych, and I knew it was going to be a new program with new staff. And I was like, I could really get on board with that. Like, I'm in a really good place mentally at this point in time. I think I can really handle it. I think I can be really helpful to these kids without being like having good boundaries. Like, I think I'm in a good place for that.
Yeah, because when I heard you were working there, like I was kind of worried a little at first. Because that can be rough, especially if you do have the history that you have.
Right. And I think if I were to, I don't want to call it a relapse, but if I were to start having depression again, I think I would probably talk to my manager and be like, look, can I move to, orthopedics for the next 6 months? Because that's what I need right now.
Yeah. So tell me about your kids.
We see a wide variety of kids. Sometimes they just got in a fight with their parents and the parents are like, oh, they're mentally unstable. Sometimes they're mad at their parents because their parents took their cell phone away because they were sharing inappropriate pictures on Instagram. And then they're like, well, F you, I'm going to take all this Tylenol. And so they overdose on Tylenol and then they end up in our unit. And some kids legitimately are really, really depressed. They're really, really suicidal. Like they don't see how anything can get any better ever. And that's what we're for. And we have a trauma-informed care kind of model. We're not punitive. We're really striving to have compassion in our care, knowing that most of these kids have some kind of trauma in their life.
Yeah.
Right now we have a lot of really somatic kids who are like, oh, I have a headache. It's 10 out of 10 pain. You're not helping me. My sprained ankle. I need a wheelchair. Or I'm going to fake being unresponsive. So they're fine, but they're just pretending like they're not responsive.
And are these kids that have been in the system before and they kind of know what to say to get a response?
Quite a number of them.
What's the average amount of time they'll stay?
I think right now we've got them at about 7 days. Once you hit past day 10, most of the time they get worse. And we don't have an outdoor space, so 10 days of being indoors cannot be good for you.
Yeah, when I was in the hospital, I was there for 11 days, and I kind of went a little crazy towards the end. Like when you're there with the same people, just constantly in your head. Because you are in your head. Like I know we had like art therapy and stuff and like mild like exercises to kind of make it better, but what kind of activities do you guys do during the day?
So we do not make them do schoolwork. That's not really part of our program. I know when I was in the hospital that was.
Yeah, me too.
And I was there for 16 days and I think by day 12, 13, I was like, okay, this is not helping anymore. There was definitely like that plateau. But we have mental health therapists who are on staff who are there all day long, not during the night, and they have like specific group therapy. They have activities that they do, like they write letters. It's like a Dear Abby, like write letters, and then another peer answers their question. And there is art therapy, which is great.
What's an example of the letter thing? Because that sounds interesting. Like, is it peer-to-peer giving each other advice?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. It's probably like, how do you handle panic attacks at school? Things like that. And then
is it like a random person who feels like they have an answer, or do you call on someone? Like, do you match them up?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm usually at the nurse's station.
That's really interesting. So, you say you work in the nurse's station, so you dole out meds and stuff.
Yeah.
Are a lot of them on medication?
Most of them are. I would say maybe 80%. Some of them, it's a challenging group of age group to deal with, because you have the kid who may or may not be open to taking medication, and then you have the parent.
Right, I was gonna say.
Who may be like, no. We actually had one who left against medical advice because mom wanted to take him to church so that Jesus could heal him.
Oof.
And refused any and all medications, interventions, and some of them do that, and it's really frustrating because I'm like, okay, so why are they here? They're suicidal, so what's the plan to prevent this from happening again?
Oh my God, that's such a rough situation to be in, especially like since you are, religious yourself, like, but you also are heavily, like, science is helping you out, obviously, like, you're on meds, so that must be a tough bridge to straddle, like, for you.
Yeah, and like for me, and you get all sorts of fun religious advice, I think God told me that you can stop taking your meds now, and I'm like, really? Because God told me to keep taking them. And I can see, like, obviously going to church and getting prayed over, I think that's a powerful thing. But also, your kid is taking drugs
Yeah.
that are making him paranoid and psychotic, and how are you going to fix that? Like, you need to make physical changes in his life. He may even benefit from, a little bit of Risperdal.
And again, it's like a toolbox. You need something of everything.
Right.
Like community and faith is so important to a lot of people, but also sometimes that isn't enough by itself.
Right. No, and I tried the faith thing, and I was like, well, maybe if I pray hard enough, maybe if I surrender everything, maybe I'm sinning, and I did all of that, and at the end of the day, it still wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And so that was the point where I was like, okay, I need to try something else. And I think that they co-work very well.
Yeah. I'm so happy that you found something that works for you and that you found your balance and that you're helping people try to find the same thing, kind of.
Yeah. One other note, the other thing that has helped me out so much, shout out to CrossFit.
Oh, yeah,
Man.
Talk about that.
So I walked into CrossFit. I had no idea what it was. I just knew I needed to lose weight, and it was the closest gym to my house. And I walk in, and people are like jumping ropes, slamming barbells, loud, obnoxious music playing, and I was like, what is this? But I stuck around for that first class, and I got hooked. And I just really liked it because I had such a tendency to like work out just based on the calories and be like, how many calories can I burn? Let's keep going. And it could get unhealthy so fast.
Oh, yeah.
But for CrossFit, they tell you exactly what to do. If you end up, and there's no room for like my depression to work. And as far as like the demeaning to myself, like if you're the last one to finish the workout, everyone cheers for you until you finish.
Oh my God,
sometimes
that's so wholesome.
Yeah, sometimes people like are done with their workout, they've been done for 5 minutes, and you still have 10 burpees to go. They will do the 10 burpees with you.
Oh my God.
It's just so supportive.
Do you think that's CrossFit as a whole or just your gym?
No,
okay.
It's CrossFit as a whole. At least if your gym doesn't do that, you need to find a new one.
Right. So when did you start this? Oh my God. Sorry, the dog is all up in our business right now. I don't know if you've been hearing her whining in the background. May, you need to chill. Okay. She's giving me kisses. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry. How long ago?
So I just came up on my 3-year anniversary.
Oh, congrats.
And I can now do 3 pull-ups.
Woo! I am the least fit person ever, but I can't even do 1 pull-up. So.
Well, it took me 3 years to do one.
Okay,
so.
I get 1 pull-up every year. Now I know how long it takes. That's so amazing.
Yeah, but it's such a focus on how my body can be strong and how I can improve myself. I'm not competing against anyone else. No one is giving me a score. I did gymnastics for a long time, and that was nice.
Yeah, I remember that.
Nice and toxic. And it was always like the judges giving me scores, and I wasn't good enough. This was my value, was a 6.2 out of 10. Versus this is like, no, I can do better this time. And like having your 1 rep max weights, like I can bench 120. And for me, that's exciting. That is exciting. Maybe for a bodybuilder, that's not exciting, or for a guy, that's not exciting at all. But for me, that's real exciting.
But you don't have to compare yourself to other people. It's just about bettering yourself.
Right. And there's not like a big like board where I write, well, this is my 1 rep max and compare it to everyone else. We don't. That's not a thing.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Against yourself.
So do you ever recommend stuff like that to your kids?
Oh yeah, all the time. I always recommend like CrossFit. Orange Theory is also very similar to CrossFit with the community aspect, and it's not quite as intimidating. Or if you can find like a boot camp kind of thing, I recommend that all the time. Every so often, like I've tried to have classes on the unit, and sometimes they're into it, and sometimes you're like, I can't do this. And I'm like, okay, I didn't tell you had to be here. You can leave. And then they just all kept peeling off. So got a little butt hurt over that.
Just keep trying. I don't know what a lot of teenagers that do CrossFit, so it seems really intense. But maybe they should be.
Yeah, well, that's what gets me about it. And the one thing that trying to think, maybe 3 months into CrossFit, we were having like the group text from my house. I was living with 11 other people at the time.
Oh my God.
And we were just having this like long text conversation, and it was just really frustrating. I think like the gas got turned off for, like, the head person was being dumb about it. Ugh. So it got turned off and I couldn't take a shower. But I wasn't going to go to CrossFit that day because I was really sore, but I was just getting really frustrated and heated from all these texts. And I was like, you know what? I can't deal with this shit. I'm going to CrossFit. And I was like, whoa, that, like, nothing can replace that. Like, that is beautiful.
Yes. Exercise is a really good coping mechanism. Like, what is that chemical it releases in your brain?
It's not dopamine.
Serotonin? That might be totally wrong.
Serotonin is another happy one.
It's not a happy one?
No, it is.
Oh.
They're both happy.
But it releases something. Like I'll start walking and I'll feel better.
Endorphins.
That's
what it is.
Yeah.
So also when I was in college, I had this wonderful thing that happened where I got really, this is good. I was taking anatomy in my pre-nursing courses, and I was failing anatomy, and it was so stressful. Like, I was so stressed, and everyone's like, well, it's only till the end of the semester, and I was like, you don't get it. If I don't pass, it's next semester too. And so it's just all this stress, and what I've later found out was cortisol, your stress hormone, competes with serotonin.
Oh.
So if you have so much cortisol going around, serotonin can't get to the receptors, and so that's going to make you depressed.
I'm just picturing two boxers in a ring, like
yeah,
fighting the crap out of each other.
Yeah, so that's what was happening. I didn't realize that, and so that started. I was anxious for good reason, and it was all situational. But I eventually passed anatomy. But wait, there's more. I got rejected from the nursing program. Like, you have to apply separately, and I got rejected. And that just was a downward spiral. It was like a total different depression from when I was in high school.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 19.
19.
Yeah. And I talked to friends about it, and I was just absolutely miserable. I went to the psychiatrist. She actually put me on a stimulant because I could not get out of bed and do my homework, which, oh, by the way, makes you more depressed because then your grades are bad. So I was on a stimulant, and eventually I was like, shoot, I need counseling. So I skipped the school counseling system because I was like, they can't help me. And I called my insurance. I found someone, and she was perfect for me. She laughed at all the right parts of my life story. And she would tell me stuff that I needed to hear and be like, no, you're just overreacting, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that was just really, really good.
Sometimes you just need tough love from a counselor.
Yeah.
I've been to counselors that are just too nice, you know?
Yeah, no, and it was a very safe place. So I did my weekly sessions for that. I worked at a summer camp that summer, and I spent so much energy trying not to be depressed. I did okay over the summer, and then I got back to school. I literally started crying as soon as I turned it off the highway.
Wow.
Into the campus town. I was like, I can't do this. And that semester, I was just hoping that I would get in to the nursing program for the following semester, and that was just a whole boatload of stress that I was dealing with.
But you got in eventually.
I did, and it was great, but it turns out the depression was still there. So that was when we started. I was like, okay, well, let's try this med. And they're like, well, nope, I'm a zombie. Well, nope, I'm sleeping during the day and can't sleep at night. Well, nope, this didn't do anything, and I gained 5 pounds. Oh, nope, insurance won't cover this one. Let's try this one. Oh, this one makes me narcoleptic. Okay. So
I'm exhausted just hearing about this.
Yeah, so it was just playing a game, trying to find one that works. And then in August of the following year, that was when I tried the Latuda. Clouds parted. It was beautiful. And then November, I found CrossFit. And I went to counseling a week later from my scheduled session. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't need this anymore. So I quit.
Soon?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I stopped counseling, and I haven't needed to go back. And I certainly am open to it if I ever get to that place again. I absolutely
right.
I know what I need to do, and I will do it. But for now, I just go to the psychiatrist every 3 months or whenever he wants to see me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That you stuck with trying to find a med even though you had so many failures, because a lot of people would have given up, I think, myself included. I just such a gamble, and you're putting yourself through so much.
Yeah, it was just like, I was like, I think part of it was I knew I didn't have to feel that way, and I'd experienced not feeling that way, and I was like, something has to work, something has to give. I can't live the rest of my life like this.
You're a fighter.
Yeah, and I remember saying when I was a teenager, I was like, you can put dog poop in a capsule. If it makes me feel better, I will take it. Fortunately, it didn't come to that.
Oh my God. Have we touched upon a new cure?
Please don't try this at home.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm so happy that you're in a good place now. And it's knowing you over the years, I've seen you at your worst. And like the person sitting next to me right now is so different. And I just love it.
No, and I'm so thankful, but also at the same point, like, I refuse to take this for granted.
Oh yeah, totally.
I imagine at another point in my life, I will experience debilitating depression again, and I will figure it out then. You know, I've figured it out twice now, and I'm confident that I'll figure out something to make it work, to make it better. Yeah. Yeah,
you have the tools. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to let the dog out before we start on the emails because... Okay, so we're going to launch into some emails from listeners because they have to do with treatment centers or psych wards, and I think your input is really valuable since you have been on both sides of the glass, like you said. Okay, so the first one is from a user who goes by Mint Chocolate Tea. She says, when I was 17, I spent a week in the adolescent psych unit because I struggled with suicidal thoughts and self-harm. I was surrounded by many other teenagers in my situation, and when we were allowed to hang out during free time, the conversations that we had were usually very depressing and, quite frankly, not at all focused on recovery of any kind, but instead about escape from the clinic, how to hide certain behaviors, and how to find loopholes in the rules set out for us. It was hard for me to provide and to get support from these people who were put in the unit against their will and were only really interested in escaping. We can relate to this so much. My question to your guest is, did you receive support from the other patients during your stay, or did you find that some people were not in the same boat as you recovery-wise? And also, I'll add on to this question, like, what do you observe? Do you observe this behavior now? Which I think obviously the answer is yes, but talk about it.
So for me as a patient, I was very treatment-oriented, and so I wasn't trying, not until the very end was I thinking okay, I need to get out of here now. My mindset was very much, I need to get this over with now. I never want to come back here. Let me do what I can now, fix it now. So my conversations, I was trying to have those kinds of conversations. And I did with a couple patients. I kept in touch with one, and that was kind of turned toxic, so that friendship ended. But definitely, you could read this. The hospital I stayed at, they had notes written on all of the beds and the desks, talking about ways to escape and all of that.
Oh my God!
So it was certainly there in pentagrams and
that's very specific,
nice and wholesome. Yeah, so I definitely saw that as a patient. As a staff member, they have some weird conversations, man. I don't hear a whole lot about people trying to escape. I think we're starting to have more problems with people who don't want to leave. As surprising as that is, I've literally heard them be like, oh, I'm not safe. I need to stay for a little bit longer. And we're like, you have been here for 2 weeks. You need to figure out something.
That's sad.
Yeah. I mean, and their home life is so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's why, you have people in and out of treatment centers their whole lives, in and out of, prison their whole lives. Sometimes the alternative is just harder to bear.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've discharged kids to jail. We've discharged them to court-ordered shelters, residentials.
Ooh, okay, so yeah, it does exist, and I think it is something that's very common. And I think treatment is what you make it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, next question is from Rachel, another Rachel. She says, I have a little bit of a backstory and a bunch of questions for your friend. The last time I did inpatient was 2015, as an adult. I was put in there after a suicide attempt, and although my stay was pretty normal and overall neutral to positive, towards the end of it, my social worker said she needed to speak to a family member. Now, I had said multiple times the only family I had was my narcissistic, abusive mother and my underage brother. She still insisted on speaking with someone before my release. I broke down and let her call home. In the conversation, my mother completely trashed me and acted like a saint. Is it normal to insist on calling a family member of the adult patient even after I had expressed how abusive she was? Whether it be former or current, how often do you come across patients that are victims of abuse? Have you spoken to the abusers, or have you witnessed any interactions between abuser and the abused? And then how often, if ever, do you doubt claims from the patient? That's a lot. She also says, I'm sure your work is rewarding and you probably love helping people and aiding in the recovery process. I've definitely toyed with the idea of doing the same exact thing. But do you ever feel as if your work is hopeless? What kind of situations does it take for you to second guess if this is what you want to do with your life?
Cool.
Yeah, you can read it. You can.
Perfect. Thanks for writing in, Rachel. I apologize for your situation. I don't know the circumstances that would want... I'm wondering if the social worker wanted to make sure that you were safe on discharge home. It doesn't say your age. So if you... say you were 19... that might be more interesting. But have hope. We understand that parents can be just as crazy as the patients, if not crazier. And so if you're, I've definitely had parents tell me things and I'm like, what a piece of crap. Like, you're more crazy than your child. So I imagine if your mom was that crazy, the social worker been like, oh, okay. And just totally discounted what the parent said.
So she asks if you ever have reason to, have you witnessed abusers and abused, together in the same room? And what's that like? And, also, do you ever have reason to doubt the patient? Because especially when you deal with younger kids, the line can get kind of gray there. Because you say a lot of them do kind of act manipulative.
Yeah. So as far as abuse, I would say probably about 50% of the kids have experienced some kind of very, very, very legitimate abuse. Another 25% think they're being abused, and I hate to discount them, but when you listen to what they have to say, they're like, yeah, my dad, he hit me with the car door because he was trying to put me in the car so that I could go to the psychiatrist, but I didn't want to go. And I kind of look at that and I'm like, okay, parent, that's...
You have to have more to the story.
That's a very fine line, and sometimes it's cultural discipline in different cultures is a little different. But we are very liberal with calling CPS because we are dealing with minors. We are mandatory reporters. So even if it is a dumb story, like my dad was pushing me into the car, we still have to call, and we still do.
Right.
I don't witness. Sometimes we allow parents onto the unit. And if the kid says they're fine to see them, they can visit. But then sometimes later we find out, oh yeah, the dad sexually abused the child for 3 years. And at that point, then we try to, meet with the kid and be like, okay, so what needs to happen? How will you feel safe here? And trying to make it, if they don't want to see their parent, they don't have to see the parent.
Yeah. It is rough because, as minors, sometimes they don't have a choice. Do
right.
they? Or,
right.
what can
well,
you do?
And then they're going to get discharged home to be with the parent. So we have to figure, it's a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you do specifically ask how often do you doubt claims from the patient. And that's the thing. It's I can personally doubt what's happening, but I'll still report it to the appropriate authorities. And then the CPS people, they can investigate for themselves. And they're the ones who have the ultimate power to judge if that is a real abusive situation. But like I said, parents won't let their kid out of the house because the kid's about to go on a 5-day drug binge. So I don't think that's abuse for the parent to lock their child in the house so that they can't go and get hurt. That's my opinion. That's not my...
And the kid doesn't see it that way.
Right.
Oh man, it's so difficult. It really is a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
And there's two sides to every story.
And as far as feeling if my work is hopeless... it's not so much a dark hopeless. It's just, I don't know how much more help I can give this kid. They have already dug themselves into a very deep pit, and I can give them all the tools in the world, but if they don't want to use them, they're not going to use them, and they'll just end up back here in a month.
Yep.
So it's frustrating, but also there are times when you really get to help someone, so...
Makes it all worth it.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, my job is just my job. I show up there 3 days a week. And I leave there, and I leave the kids there. I leave most of my interactions there. I leave it all there, and I go home, and I'm me. And I do my CrossFit. I watch TV. I do my thing. I do homework, lots and lots of homework. So yeah.
Yeah, it's so important for your own mental health to be able to detach yourself when you work in a field like this.
Yes, leave it at work. This is not my identity.
That brings me to the next question. Well, there's a couple more questions. This one is kind of short and broad. She just asks, like, how on earth, like, did you get through school while dealing with this stuff?
Gosh.
And I know you already talked about this. I'm trying to see her exact words. Yeah. Ask her about getting through nursing school with all this shit going on. It's from Ina.
It was kind of like, it sounds really cliche, but one day at a time. One of the things that really helps me is to become task oriented. So I would make a lot of checklists. This is what needs to happen by Friday. One of the ways I can cope with my symptoms is to throw myself into the schoolwork. And so a lot of it that was all I did. I did homework and then I went to sleep. I would go to bed at like 9:30 because I couldn't justify staying up later, but I also couldn't study. So I was like, well, it's time to go to bed.
I'm the same exact way. I have never done an all-nighter before.
Me neither.
Because they don't work. Past a certain point, your brain just stops working.
Right. No, and I think that was also another coping skill, was just, it's like, I can't control so much of this, but you know what? Gosh darn it, I can control when I go to bed. And I'm going to bed at 9:30.
Yes. I feel like that's an unpopular opinion.
And plus I was on the trazodone, so it gives me a little kick to help fall asleep. So I can fall asleep when I feel like it.
Yes, I think a set schedule is so important. Like having a plan. I use a planner. It's color-coded. Mm-hmm. Trying to stay in control as much as you can. Yeah,
and it was just a lot of checklists. Like, this has to be done today. This can wait until tomorrow. So you're triaging your work and be like, this needs to be done today. I need to start this today, but finish tomorrow. Just becoming very detail oriented.
When you're depressed, it's so hard to remember this stuff. So don't make yourself remember. Just write it down. That way you don't have to remember. You can just, if you're feeling overwhelmed, pick one little tiny thing on the list and do it.
Yeah. Yeah, just do something.
Do something. One day at a time.
Like, pick it up and start.
Okay, last question.
Oh, wait, sorry. One more thing that really helped me was I would get kind of anxious and I'd be like, okay, 5 seconds of bravery. And if I can hold it together for 5 seconds, I will get there. And so that's what I did, like, when I signed up for my CrossFit intro class. It's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. This is a terrible idea. And I was like, no, 5 seconds of bravery. Pick up the phone, dial.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's really useful, actually.
It was from, like, a Disney movie or something.
I think, did you ever watch the TV show Lost?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I think they do something.
It scared
He counts down from 10 or something when he feels like that. Okay. Last question is from M. She says, would you ask your friend what, if any, obstacles she encountered getting into the field, considering her own history? Did she have to disclose her past with mental health problems?
So, in the interview, absolutely not. I did not disclose anything. I didn't even disclose that I was in school. And they can't ask you about that on the interview.
Getting your master's now, right? Or what are you getting? Okay, you're getting your master's now.
Oh, is this about school or work? Or both?
Well, both. It's just
okay.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit hard to write a cover letter to explain why you're so passionate about this without disclosing your own. But there's ways to get around it. I think I said my sister had issues or my friends and whatever.
Do they have like a background check that they do? Because I think that would be a big liability if you do work with, like, you are in a healthy place, but how would they know that?
Right.
They could just hire someone who's totally unstable.
Yeah. I did have to do a background check, but I don't think they're allowed to check like hospital records. That's a major HIPAA violation. But I was never in the criminal justice system, and no ever accusations of abuse, anything like that. I did when I had to do my employee physical with employee health. I did have to disclose the medications I was on, and I was kind of like, screw it. I'll just throw them all on there. And I think there is a question like, have you ever been hospitalized for this? And I'm pretty sure I said yes, and I think I did like a disclosure like I have not had any medication changes in the last 3 years. Like, if that doesn't say that I'm stable. I don't know what does.
Yeah.
And just being able to speak to it very, like, in a professional way and be like, yes, I'm on X, Y, and Z. I see the psychiatrist every 3 months. And so that went to employee health. That did not go to my boss. That did not go to my coworkers. That stayed with them. And then as far as school, the same thing, like writing in the application, like the essay or whatever. I kept that out. I'm actually going for family, not mental health at this point in time. So it's easier to write about other passions I have with primary care, vaccinations, things like that.
Cool. So wrapping up, what's like your 5-year plan?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to do with your degree once you graduate?
So I'm going to get a degree family nurse practitioner. So I would like to work in family practice. If anyone knows of any clinical rotation sites that are willing to take me, please let me know. Please send Christina a message. Yes, so I would like to work family practice. I will be licensed to see any age from birth to death.
Whoa.
And so I would like to work with all ages. And my real passion is medical missions. I have been on a couple where I went to Peru, to some really rural areas, and provided medical care. But it was more than that. It was also providing like a lot of compassion and being like, look, someone cares about you. Your government has forgotten about you because you live 5 hours driving from the nearest city, and they've forgotten about you and they don't care about you. But you know what? We do. And that was really powerful to me. And so I want to go on those trips probably about twice a year with an established group and provide care. And I think that's going to bring me a lot of joy.
Awesome.
For sure.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
It's been so great to reconnect and see how you're thriving now.
Yeah.
I like to wrap up each episode with like a cool thing I discovered in the past week. So as we're recording now, it's Wednesday, so the week has kind of just begun. But do you have any like recommendations or coping methods or like something to offer listeners that they can check out this week? Because when we release this, it's going to be Monday, so whole new week.
Yeah. So something that I've discovered recently is like a meal service.
Oh, okay.
I get it through my CrossFit. It's called, am I allowed to say brand name? It's called Territory Foods, and they prepare really healthy meals for me. And I pick them up. I only pick them up once a week, but you can pick them up twice a week. They're really healthy. They taste really, really good. And that is such a good healthcare or self-care thing. Like, if that was one of my issues with depression, was I couldn't muster the energy to make something healthy for myself.
Same. Like I've totally been there. I think that's a big thing when you're depressed, like not being able to get the right nutrition, which makes it worse.
Yeah. And I would just like sit on my kitchen floor and start crying because I was like, I don't know what to do. I just want something that tastes good. Okay, I'm gonna make some chicken nuggets.
Yeah. So what's it called? Territory Foods? And where is it available?
It's in various cities, like metropolitan cities. So there is one in DC area. I don't know where else, but there's some other compatible ones. So if you're really struggling in that department and you have the financial means, please like do it.
Yeah.
It's like I'm totally healthy now, and it's so nice to have.
Maybe that's a future sponsor in the works, guys. Well, we hope you have a wonderful week, and we will see you next time. I realized on the last episode that I told you like 5 times to email the show with your questions and stories, and I never once said the email address. So if you have any stories or questions, or like you have an idea for a theme you want to explore, if you want to be a guest, email the podcast. It's picklesandvodkapodcast@gmail.com. I'm on Facebook, Pickles and Vodka Podcast, same on Instagram. Hit me up, slide into my DMs.
How's your website going?
I don't want to talk about the website.
Okay.
This is a sore spot for me. But yeah, a website will be up eventually. To be honest, probably after I move, because I have a lot on my plate right now. But yeah, you guys have a great week. Bye.
Bye.